Ever, like, stopped for a second and thought about those little letters tacked onto the end of website addresses? Today
Mm-hmm.
we're going dep on one you've probably seen a bunch, .io. It's
Mm.
everywhere in the tech world, right?
Yeah.
But get this, there's a whole geopolitical thing going on that might come as a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, .io, it sounds catchy, kind of techy,
Yes, it
right?
does.
Like input-output, and that's probably why startups love it. But what most people don't know is that .io is actually tied to a real place,
Well,
the British Indian Ocean Territory, the Chagos Islands, specifically.
okay, wait. So you're saying my website address could be linked to, like, an island chain thousands of miles away? How'd that happen?
It's like a relic of the early internet, really. Back when they were assigning these domain names, .io went to this British territory. And back then, no one could have predicted how sought after it would become, especially in the tech world.
And now it's caught up in this, like, geopolitical tug of war.
Exactly. The Chagos Islands. They're at the center of a sovereignty dispute. Basically, there's an ongoing debate about who actually has the right to control them. And if that control shifts, it could have major implications for .io.
Okay. For those of us who aren't, like, international law experts, what does sovereignty actually mean in this context?
Sovereignty basically means having the ultimate authority to govern a territory. In the case of the Chagos Islands, there are, these conflicting claims to this authority. And if the dispute gets resolved in a way that changes who's in control, they could theoretically also then claim control over the .io domain.
So it's like those tech companies built their whole online presence on, like, potentially shaky ground.
In a way, yeah, you could say that. It really highlights the connection, which is often overlooked, between our digital lives and like real world places and real world politics.
Yep.
And one person who picked up on this was a Platform X user with the handle imrulo.eth. They posted about this very issue, drew a fascinating comparison to stablecoins in the cryptocurrency world.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. How do stable coins play into all of this?
So, stablecoins. They're digital currencies that are designed to have a stable value, often pegged to something like the US dollar. But just like with the .io domain and the Chagos Islands, that stability depends on the stability of that underlying factor.
So you're saying there's this kind of, like, hidden layer of dependence, even in the digital world, that we don't often think about.
Precisely. And this Platform X user, imrulo.eth, was drawing attention to that very fact. That just because something seems stable on the surface, like a domain name or a stablecoin, doesn't mean it's immune to real-world events.
It's a good reminder that things aren't always as simple as they seem, especially online. So what does this actually mean for someone who might have a .io website right now, or is thinking about getting one?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's actually where things get really interesting. It's not necessarily a reason to just completely avoid .io,
Right.
but it does really highlight how important it is to be informed. Think of it like this. If you're going to build a house,
Okay.
you want to make sure that the ground underneath is solid, right?
Absolutely. So what are the, like, foundation checks someone should be doing if they're thinking about a .io domain?
Well, for starters, it's helpful to get why .io became so popular in the first place.
Yeah.
Besides just the catchy sound, it really gained traction in the tech community because for a while there, it was seen as this like less crowded alternative to the more common ones, like your .com or .net.
Yeah, you see .io everywhere now, especially with startups. It seems like anything related to tech or software, even online gaming, a lot of times has a .io address.
Exactly. And that popularity, that's driven up the demand.
Yeah.
And in some cases, even the price of .io domains.
Wow.
Which is why this whole geopolitical situation just adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Yeah.
You've got businesses potentially putting serious money into a domain name that could be impacted by things totally outside of their control.
It's almost like buying property in a really quickly developing area.
Yeah.
There's potential for a big payoff, but there are also some inherent risks if things change.
Speaking of risks, did imrulo.eth have any thoughts on what people who are already using .io domains could do to, mitigate potential problems?
They didn't give any specific advice or anything, but their post did get a ton of people talking about diversifying your online presence.
Interesting.
It's kind of like, you wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Relying only on a single domain name, especially one with potential geopolitical vulnerabilities like we've been talking about, could be risky.
So maybe it's like having a backup plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It might be worth registering a related .com or .net domain, just in case.
Right.
It's not about ditching .io completely,
Yeah.
but it's more about being prepared and having options. That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like this whole situation is a good example of why it's so important to kind of stay informed about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to something as seemingly simple as just like a domain name.
For sure. And this case really shows how these different fields, technology, politics, geography, they all intersect in our world in these unexpected ways.
It's like a reminder that the digital world isn't some like separate thing. It's woven into the fabric of the physical world. So what does this all mean for the future of .io? Is there any way to know, like, predict what might happen? So where does .io go from here? Can anyone say for sure?
It's really a waiting game now. The future of .io is really tied to what happens with the Chagos Islands sovereignty dispute. No crystal ball here, but different things could happen.
Like what? What are some possibilities?
Well, if things stay the same, if
Yeah.
the British Indian Ocean Territory keeps control, .io probably keeps going as is.
Oh.
But if control changes, like say another country gets it, well, that's where things get really unpredictable. They could keep the .io system, change it, or even totally disrupt it.
Wow, that uncertainty is kind of unsettling, right? Imagine pouring your heart into building a brand around a .io domain,
Yeah.
and then it's just gone.
Exactly. And that's what made that imrulo.eth post really hit home for people. It's this reminder that even things that seem really stable in the digital age, they can still be vulnerable to real-world politics and power struggles.
Makes you appreciate, like, really understanding the full picture.
Yeah.
Who knew those two little letters could have such a wild story?
It's a great example of just how connected everything is. Technology, geography, history, even international relations. They all come together in these weird ways.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. Any final thoughts for our listeners out there navigating the digital world?
Yeah, I'd say this. Next time you go to a website, take a second to think about the domain name, like its story. You might be surprised what you find. It's this little reminder that the digital world, it's not separate from the real one. It's totally embedded in it, with all its complexities and uncertainties.
Absolutely. A huge thanks to you for breaking down this whole web of tech and geopolitics. And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive gave you some food for thought for the next time you're online. Until next time.